We are very excited to be traveling with you to Israel. For the very first time in Temple's history, we've taken scores, maybe, I don't know, scores of trips, I'd say, maybe hundreds. No one more than Tzvi and Shoshi, Rabbi Loss and Susan Loss, and we will be traveling together on our, like I said, our 67th trip or whatever it is. But this is a different one in that for the very first time, we have an itinerary that is geared towards first-timers and towards returnees. And I think someone here has been there 7 times or something. So let me just ask you a question. If you've never been to Israel, just quickly, would you raise your hand? Oh, so all the people that were here before decided to skip the meeting. Okay. And if you've been already, raise your hand? Yeah, that's what happened. Okay.
And if you remember the last time you went, raise your hand.
Right.
If you remember anything, please raise your hand. If you're above the age of 60 and you don't remember who you are, raise your hand. And we're taking you to the same places anyway, so it makes no difference.
So this will be yes, this will be a short and by kibbutz he means interrupting everything I say. This will be a short meeting. It's not really a meeting. It's just a get to know you, chance to answer some questions, see everyone's beautiful faces. And we will have, though, some very important informational meetings coming up, each of which will be, and you should have the email with that. If not, please call me tomorrow. Each of which will be preceded by a lecture by our own Dr. Lubavitch. So I thought I would just give him a 5 minutes to just talk about what he'll be teaching us. And by the way, those lectures are very important because when you're in Israel, it is a walking history book. And having those lectures, giving you the background, will help you truly absorb and understand this amazing country that we're about to see together. So Howard, just a little bit about what the next 2 lectures will be.
Yeah, I don't even need 5 minutes. I'll do it in like 90 seconds. First, let me say, if you haven't traveled with these 2 rabbis before, I got to go with them, with a group to Eastern Europe last year. They're great to travel with. So you're in for a huge treat. So 2 talks, and I think since much of what you're going to see, some of it's going to be about ancient Israel, and some of it's going to be about the modern state of Israel. So that's what the 2 talks are going to be about. So the first one is going to be the world of ancient Israel, how we understand stories from the Bible as history, how we understand the story of Hanukkah and the Maccabees as history, what it was like, what those archaeological ruins are really all about, why different stones of the Kotel in Jerusalem look differently, why Jerusalem has that distinct feel, why it's so important. That'll be the first one. The second one will be the modern story, which is really not only the story of Zionism, but what I like to call visions of the Jewish state. How different individuals who wanted to create a Jewish state in the 20th century, how they envisioned it differently, and how these visions came to fruition. So that's really what the 2 talks are going to be about. But I'm looking forward. It's not for a few months, so you don't have to hear me again tomorrow. You were nice enough to sit through tonight. You've got a few months, you can cool off, and then you'll be ready maybe to hear me again in a few months. But I'm looking forward.
If you're out of town, we will be streaming both of them. If you're in town, though, no sitting in your living room and listening, okay? Because the meetings afterwards will actually be something you'll want to be here for, including Shoshi's famous packing seminar, which is really not to be missed. The other thing, I just want to go back to this 2-timer, 1-timer thing. Because we have, for us, a relatively small group, 60 people, which will mean 30-something on a bus, which is great. We haven't had that in years, decades, probably. This has allowed us to create a different type of experience. First of all, we'll hit all the major sites that you have to hit, but we've also found some things that you've never done before. For instance, you'll be going into the West Bank and meeting with the Palestinian Authority. It's really, we had a small group go last time. It was an unbelievable experience. We're going to go to a goat farm to experience some of the best cheese I've ever eaten and watch how it's made, and the person who does it out in the middle of nowhere, he's like the prophet Isaiah. It's incredible. So we have a chance to do some different things. We'll be hiking the Machtesh Ramon, the crater, which we haven't done on an Israel trip since we took teenagers. And that is another point I wanted to make. People, the most oft asked question is, well, what if what if I can't walk? The truth is, if you can't walk at all, you probably shouldn't be on this trip, right? Shosh, you'll be walking by then, right? But we have had people of all ages and all abilities. So I just want to give you one example of how this will work. And because we have the ability to give choices. Now, some of those choices are going to be painful because you're going to want to do both things, but it's a great opportunity. So I'll give you one example. We're going to be traveling down to the Machtesh, to one of the great wonders of the natural world, which is in the desert in Israel. And some of us will decide to take a beautiful hike to an incredible site, and it's going to be amazing. Some of us are not going to want to take that hike because it might be a little challenging, and we'll have an incredible opportunity to meet with an actual Bedouin who's going to teach us about, in his Bedouin tent, teach us about Bedouin culture, which we also don't want to miss. So we're going to put you in that position sometimes. You'll have the decisions to make. What's amazing is we have the two best guides, the two most amazing guides, and I'm not talking about the two of us. I mean the people who do the real work, the Morei Derech, and so we are very excited about this opportunity. We've never done this before. We think it's going to be amazing. A few more things about what's happening next. We also have a final blessing, which is the Friday night before the Friday night that we're going, I think. It's on the what is it? March 23rd. We do hope you'll all be there, because not only will we be blessed, which is a beautiful, nice thing, but also there'll be a presentation from our shlicha, the Israeli representative to Detroit, who is wonderful, a member of our congregation, and also a representative of the Partnership 2000 region. We'll be visiting Israelis from our partnership region in Israel, and we'll have a presentation about that evening, short presentation. So that's really the plan for the next, so on. A few more just housekeeping things. Please, if you have not done so already, please get travel insurance. We really, what's more than highly recommend? We can't require it, but we really hope you will get.
About your complaint, not getting a refund.
Right. And my last piece, really, before I give it to my colleague here and also take some questions, is as I mentioned, some of you heard, we did have an unfortunate situation. A wonderful group of 6 people who we love and actually are going to miss quite a lot. One of their number had a bad diagnosis, cannot be with us, and therefore, if you do have friends, and even if they're not members of Temple at this point, there are 6 places on the trip that, without stuffing the buses or anything, we could easily give away. Even though at this point, usually we're closed. But I think, you know, because we are down 6, if you'd like to have friends come with you from Florida, from wherever, call them up. We'd be glad to have them.
I think that it's just important for you to know, we just believe in taking people to Israel. And those 6 really filled the bus to the point where we wanted to go at this time. And if you have people you think you really would look around the group, would enjoy being with the group, feel free to find and connect with them, because why do we do this every year or every 2 years and consistently? Why does Temple Israel have a teenage mission? Why does the Temple Israel have a family mission? Why does Temple Israel have an adult mission? Because with all of the ambivalence of some of the things that are going on regarding Israel and its and the reform and conservative and movement issues, we're committed to this state and to our place. That's number one. Number 2, you're going to have a lot of fun. I don't think people, everyone thinks that we're going on a mission to Israel. We're going to just have a lot, I promise you, unless you don't like to have fun. People on these trips, we really just enjoy being together. I mean, it's a wonderful, Israel is the backdrop to developing loving relationships. We have people who are still going out to lunch. 30 years ago, they met on a trip, and they continue doing that. Israel is a great place to visit. It's just, I'm beginning to talk about people going and just spending time there. People think to go to Israel means to go on a bus and a trip. A lot of people are now saying, look, after you've done these trips, and I'm going to go spend 2 weeks in Jerusalem. I'm going to spend a week in Jerusalem and a week in Tel Aviv. Like you go to every other place you all visit, and we all visit, and just to experience it. And finally, do you have any questions? Yes.
Most pressing is that we have until December 15th to decide whether we want to fly with Arz's planes
Yeah.
or book our own. Now, I spoke to Arz and they said their planes are the economy sort of flights, Does anyone have any suggestions as far as booking flights?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true because I booked same flight that ours had. In other words, I
Yes.
booked their flight, but I just booked it because I wanted to fly Delta Comfort, not the other.
Yeah.
I booked the exact same itinerary as the flight, so if that flight's
And the cost? No, it's not an economy flight. And the seats. So is it a cost? What was the cost difference?
it cost $200 more one for Brenda and myself.
There are some advantages of being on the group flight, including the flexibility that if things change, you change with the entire group and so on. But I will say that some of those issues are taken care of by the insurance. So if you get insurance, then the flexibility is not as important. But flexibility is one of the issues if you had to cancel the trip.
Talking about insurance for the trip itself?
For the trip itself, yeah.
We might not go.
Yeah, if something were to happen, you wouldn't go. If you're on a group trip, they can cancel. If you're on your own flights, as you know, you can't cancel without penalty. So,
Or you call me and I talk to Delta because I'm really good at it.
Yes. Flight, well, everything, you know.
My mother's 91 with dementia. If she were to pass away then, we're going to cancel and we won't.
Yeah, I would say pick whatever you're comfortable with. To me, it's a matter of how you're going to be seated. So ask the question, what seats are available in what part of the airplane? A lot of people try to go into Delta Comfort if they have comfort, and they've come up with this new Delta other section, I don't know what it's called, which doesn't, so I think it's a question of seating. It's not a question, it's not an economy flight, it's a matter of seats.
Let me say one more thing about that. 3 years ago, when we went last time, there was a real reason not to take the group flight, and that was because if you were a gold or a platinum flyer, you could immediately be given your economy comfort, and you wanted that. You couldn't do that on the group flight. Unfortunately, what I'm finding now is they're not going to upgrade you to economy comfort until the very end anyway.
They didn't upgrade us at all.
Yeah.
Platinum, they didn't upgrade.
Yeah, so you may have to pay for it. Yeah.
So are most people here by?
Okay, people here, by show of hands, how many of you are on the group flight?
The plane,
No.
On the airplane going out as part of the group flight. But however you got on that plane. So there's your answer.
Yeah, Rob.
Okay, it's, the flights are available, that when I talked to ours, I got the flight number, then I checked with Delta. But my concern is this, if we book it, not through ARSA and book it on our own, could we tie the reservations together in case our flights change? Would we?
No, I personally, out of my own pocket, I end up spending on this trip, I ended up spending $400 for Wendy and I to change. When things changed, I had to change out, and they charged. I'm not as good at Harold as getting them to give me my money back. So I actually did have that. I did have that issue where I had to change my flights to match the Temple ones.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, if there was like a State Department order and not going to Israel at the time of going, you get your money back?
Okay, let me tell you about State Department alerts, my favorite story. I was in Israel, and we invited to come speak to us Richard Roth. Richard Roth, at the time, was the #2 man in the embassy in Israel. If you knew Mort and Marcy Roth living in town here, he was their son, good friend of mine. So he comes to the meeting speaking on behalf of, just speaking to us as a group. And someone raised their hand and says, tell me, we've been here now for a week and a half and there's been this warning, don't come to Israel. Why would there be this warning? And he said, oh, well, I want you to understand, I wrote that warning. And he explained it. He said, after the government feels they feel that they must, if they know anything that might happen anywhere, they write a warning. So the warnings that they have, there's almost always a warning to travel everywhere. I don't know if there was a radical warning. I've never had that in all my travels to Israel. But at times there is a generalized warning that exists. But it's written often because it was after Lockerbie. That's what it was. After the plane was shot down in Lockerbie, there was the sense that the government knew something and had not shared that. Not a great deal, but it shared, not known enough. So Richard, who was the #2 guy in the American Embassy, says, we now put out warnings always, and he was the one who wrote it. But look, if we had a feeling or a sense of danger, we would not be there. And I've never in 50 trips to Israel, honestly, ever not gone because I've experienced danger. Could there be something? God forbid, of course. So I don't know. It'll depend on the insurance. It'll depend on the situation. And the last thing, if God forbid there's a real problem, the last thing we'll worry about is the money.
And how obliging your doctor is, really, is what it comes down to. But we're all Jewish, so we all have a cousin who's a doctor, so, right, yeah.
So, these 2 tracks on any given day, is that optional?
Not every day. There are just certain points where you'll have a choice.
And is that choice at that moment?
No, you're going to pre-register for all those things.
You need to pre-register.
Yes. And speaking of that, we're not that inflexible. There are certain things you couldn't change, but no, normally we can change. But actually, speaking of that, if you have not yet filled out that questionnaire that we sent, please do. It's information we actually will use to help even now to massage this itinerary. Also, it will ask you if you're going in Eilat, if you're going to go over to Jordan. So let me just talk about that for a second, because that's something you could change now with no problem. So I would say that if you've been there before, you'll know whether you want to go back or not. If you haven't been there before, into Petra, the only reason not to go, there's really only 2 reasons. One is that walking is really a problem for you because there is a long walk and it's in sand and you can hire a donkey or not a donkey, it's actually a horse, but the horse is pretty bouncy. So one reason to go is you just know that walking a mile in the sand would just be impossible for you. That's a decent reason not to go. The other reason not to go is if you've been there before and you really rather spend the time around the pool in Eilat. Otherwise, we are going to have a tour of Eilat. It will be lovely. But I must tell you, I've been to a lot of places that they called one of the wonders of the world. Petra is truly one of the wonders of the world. If you have a choice, go to Petra. Don't miss it. Just because you want to lay around the pool.
It's unbelievable.
Right. If you want to lay around the pool, when you get back, Rabbi Loss will invite you over to his pool, and you can lay around a beautiful pool.
If you haven't been to Petra and you have a chance to do it, and you can, most people can go. You pace yourself in terms of walking, but unless you're recovering from surgery and wearing tennis shoes that are open. My wife had surgery on her foot. That's why we're teasing her. She'll be great by the time we go.
She has surgeries, by the way, based on our travel itinerary, just so you know.
But Petra's great. Just look forward to this. And I want you to know, we've learned how to do these kind of track kinds of days. And we have a really great, the ARTSA works with us in creating these different venues. And it's because you have 2 buses you can do this. In other words, if you don't have 2 buses, everyone goes to the same place. You can't do it. But you can send bus A to here and bus B to there. So could you say, if 60 people want to go and there are 3 people who don't want to go to someplace, it might be more difficult. But even then, we'll put you in a cab with one of the counselors, your staff, and you'll go.
Oh, that is another question we get a lot is, well, what happens if I want to do something different, or what happens if I'm tired, or what? You are adults, okay? So just so you understand. Now, I want to tell you, the honest truth is, I have had lots of friends who have come on these trips saying, oh, I'm going to take a few days and do this. Because the group becomes so cohesive, nobody does it. But believe me, if you want to take a cab and go somewhere, Gegezonteheid, just let us know ahead of time, just so we're not calling the police. You know, this is not the teen trips. On the teen trips, we make you get up in the morning.
We're not going to do bed checks.
Right, no bed checks, right. There's not even a curfew, believe it or not.
You'll be so tired, you'll be asleep quite early. It's not a problem.
The only thing we'll be doing is we'll be nudging you to drink water 24 hours a day. That will be our one little babysitting task.
Any other
questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I may have 2 questions. I've been to Israel several times, and I never did get to Petra. I'm a little older now. How difficult is it?
No, we had people much less mobile than you go to Petra. So you can go to Petra for sure.
You didn't ask how old
But I saw you walk around before, so I know we've had.
Age is not the determining factor for anything that we do.
We had Wendy's mother's boyfriend go with us last time. Believe me, you could have run circles around him. Sorry, Henry, but it was true. So no, it wouldn't be an issue. But look, someone could say at the end of a long, could say that it's just too much, they don't want to do it. All I'm telling you is what you get at the end is spectacular, is once in a lifetime.
Next question, you had a second.
Yes, it was about seating on the planes. As soon as I made my reservation, I asked about being possibly sitting in business class. And she said, no, that was not possible. The whole group was sitting together, so that's it.
Wait. If you're taking the group flight, you can't upgrade. But if you want, you can get out of the group flight. That's the flexibility I spoke about, and book yourself on the same plane in business class if it's available. And you could be in one of those little pods, and I'll wake you up in the middle of the night, and I'll change places with you. And it's great. It's a machaya. If you can, absolutely, you should.
I sleep very soundly.
Any other questions about anything?
Good night, and looking forward to traveling with you.
One more announcement. If you're married, we have lots of singles on this trip, which is great. I love that. But if you're married, and especially if you're near a major, 25-year anniversary or something like that, please also fill out that form and let us know. We are going to have a little something special during the trip as a sort of a reconsecration, remarriage ceremony. And with that, we're going to Harold's going back because he's got 2 funerals tomorrow, but I'm going to stick around with Wendy and answer any more private questions that you might have. Yeah.
Where are we going in the last night?
We're meeting with the